So when you think about the restaurant industry, the biggest challenge that they are facing today is food safety. And food safety is going to start with basically how you guys are dealing with your existing operations, whether it's inside your restaurant or maybe in your own hotel. My name is Paul Barron, and this is the Barron Report. We're going to break into food safety topics today, but one that maybe you haven't seen before, and that is mostly driven through robotics and some new technologies that are starting to move forward. I've got the CEO of Ava Robotics, Mr. Youssef Saleh. Great to have you on here, Youssef.
Pleasure meeting you. Pleasure talking with you.
Youssef, let's just jump into Ava Robotics first. And for our viewers and listeners, tell us a little about what Ava Robotics is and how you guys kind of got going.
Yes, actually, Ava Robotics is a spin-off of iRobot. The Ava itself was incubated inside iRobot as a part of a vision of a robot will be part of everyday life, doing many different tasks, working alongside people in a safe, collaborative way. And one of our first solutions that we launched into the market is a telepresence robot that is in production today.
What would be some of the applications that a telepresence robot would be utilized for?
Yeah, I mean, if I told you you could teleport, imagine what that would mean to any organization, that you could teleport, especially now with the limitations of travel or constraints on travel. But in general, the ability to be in a different place, in a physically different place, and have a physical presence and be able to collaborate with colleagues, collaborate with, in the factory, collaborate in the warehouses, being able to be in many different places at once, but have the complete control and ability to behave as if you're there.
Yeah. That's great. I think that would be a huge benefit, especially as we start to see the spread moving forward. Let's go into the technology that you guys did with a collaboration with MIT. Talk to me a little bit about kind of how the UV technology works with decontamination, especially how it might apply to food service and hospitality. Can you share that a bit?
Yes, absolutely. So part of our technology is being able to deliver these different applications. So we have been working on different applications, including UV disinfection capability. That's pre-COVID-19.
Right.
And when MIT reached out to me, MIT CSAIL's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab through Daniela Roos, and wanted to collaborate with us on specific projects for the Greater Boston Food Bank. And the problem was the Greater Boston Food Bank is a large facility that distributes foods across the states to 500 other facilities. And the donations and the food that is being donated was multiplying. Most people that operate there are volunteer bases. And the concern about safety and being able to make sure the products are disinfected and the distribution is in a safe way, an opportunity to collaborate with MIT to do that, we're delighted to participate. And literally within less than 2 months from deciding that we're going to collaborate and bring a UV disinfecting robot to that facility, we actually have a robot right now at Greater Boston Food Bank that is disinfecting that facility. I think what's available publicly that focused on an area where a lot of the traffic goes in and out, and it's about 4,000 square feet. Obviously, there's no limit to the size, but that area was about 4,000 square feet that focused on initially, and could disinfect that space within 30 minutes.
So this is a robot that has a UVC apparatus on it. Basically, it's tooling around, scanning for surfaces that it can basically expose to.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the science between UVC and why this potentially works on viruses or any kind of contaminants that might be living on surfaces. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So UVC is proven to disinfect viruses, specifically also COVID-19 and other viruses. The challenge was it's not that UV light or UVC lights existed, but the challenge is how do you disinfect a large space?
Right.
And if you think of what's the effectiveness of that, is usually it's a factor of power, how much UV light you're putting out, the distance, and the durations of the time, meaning the distance from the surface and the duration of time to actually be effective and disinfect. So adding the mobility, the intelligent mobility with our platform, now you have the ability to take that UV light and get closer to surfaces, all the surfaces, within a distance that could disinfect it. Again, you're now shortening the distance, being the light is very purposeful, so it's very efficient, and being able to navigate intelligently. Because UV lights are not really safe for humans. They're not, you're not supposed to be in the light, a human presence for the eyes and skins and what have you. So being able to do this with nobody's there is critical. So in that specific deployment, it actually runs overnight. So the place is disinfected and clean prior to anybody walking in.
Interesting. So I think, in a restaurant application or a hotel application, this would be perfect because typically that's when cleaning crews come in, to do nightly cleanup. Being able to disinfect tables and booths and all those kinds of things would be perfect for something like this, especially with the scenarios that restaurants are facing today, which is, they don't have as many obstacles in a restaurant for an AI or automated robot, because obviously in a restaurant that has a lot of tight furniture, that can become a problem. But at least now we're dealing with a much more open floor plans in restaurant operations. If you look at kind of the future of where this technology is going, because I've seen some of these robots where they go in and disinfect airplanes, and I've seen videos of the robot going up and down the aisle, disinfecting the seats and things of that nature. Is this approachable from an operator standpoint in terms of cost justification for them to maybe deploy this in a high volume restaurant? Because some restaurants may just not, their revenues numbers would not be there to be able to handle this.
Yeah, I would say, it's the ability, first talk about what is the solution, why it's effective for different reasons. First, from a UV light perspective, it would reach places that sometimes is really hard to clean and disinfect with the traditional cleaning. The other thing is it doesn't leave any residue. There is no chemicals that left behind, etc. The third aspect that is really important is as this becomes, standardized, think of the confidence that you have that space has been disinfected. So the robot has the ability not just to disinfect, but also has the ability to tell you what's been disinfected and be able to show you a map of the space and what's been disinfected, what's not. And in terms of spaces, as I said, our technology was designed to where people work. So even in spaces that are tight or whatever, right, doesn't have to be wide open spaces, as long as a person could navigate.
Yeah. Interesting.
In terms of a cost profile or cost optimization, obviously in the early adoption or early deployment of technologies, it's probably some industries would be able to adopt it faster than others. But instead of thinking restaurant, think of the whole chain, right? All the way from the warehouse to the kitchen to the front of the house, what they call it, right? Where people So there's a disinfection, but there's also the robotics applications that could minimize human contact.
Yeah. Well, I could see this being maybe even a service that a company could, deploy a robot over multiple restaurants overnight. Maybe I don't know how long the infection process takes for it to scan around a restaurant, but if you could do, let's say, one restaurant an hour in a strip center and handle 10 restaurants, now your cost justification is a much different approach, especially if you're capable of giving them like a video feed or something like that that could kind of say, hey, this is what the robot did. Here's your disinfection report. Do you see any of this moving into the government legislation side where we could see legislative actions to try to kind of enforce these kinds of technologies onto retail, or especially customer-facing areas like airports, hotels, obviously restaurants? Any thoughts on how that might go in the future?
Yeah, I don't know if there'll be legislative to make it required or mandatory, but I think the comment I mentioned earlier, it's the confidence for the patrons, the customers,
Sure.
passengers. If I have an ability to show certification that my space is certified to have been disinfected last night, right?
Yep.
That is powerful. You don't need legislation to get you there. I think that would be the most powerful way of accelerating the adoption such technology.
Yeah.
I think
I like
on the idea of service, you're absolutely right. We're not in the business of logistics, but absolutely, you could have companies that have deployed in that way. And when I have conversations with customers, including hotels today, right, looking at disinfecting of rooms in the open spaces, their restaurant, their eating area, their meeting areas. And one of the conversations I'm having is, what do you do today, right? What's the cost today of having people come and clean?
Right.
And there's definitely the economics work if you look at it from that angle. You're absolutely right. What's the cost of having, what's the value of having a sure way to disinfect your space? And what's the cost for that? If you look at it as a service, absolutely there is a economics that would work.
Yeah, for sure. Youssef, let's go into kind of the consumer aspect of this in the sense of adoption and also acceptance. So with Ava Robotics, you guys seem to be moving in the direction of robots actually working within and around humans in their everyday life. So when you look at that kind of behavior of just everyday consumers and humans in the sense of being able to accept that. I mean, it's much like the movie iRobot. You had a lot of pushback from certain areas, and then you had a lot of people that accepted robots in their space. Do you think we're there yet with society of being able to accept robots in a very close proximity to us?
Oh, good question. I'm going to try to address it from two perspectives. The first one is, again, pre-COVID-19, just our vision of robots being in the workplace. And the reason we brought in telepresence robot as the first solution is we believe first there is a need. The application is is wide in many different industries. But the fact that would ease the adoption of robots into the workplace. So instead of being a robot that is doing this weird thing, it's me.
That's a good point.
It's my colleague that is here to talk to me on the robot. So you trust the robot. You trust the intelligence of it, the safety of it, and that eases the adoption for the next application and the next application. So that's one angle. The other is what we're hearing today, and my experience, when you're in the robotic space, you hear this all the time. The concern or the perception that robots they're not
Have
they're
an agenda.
their job, right? But what I've seen has been very loud and clear. The whole perception or thoughts about robots has shifted from being this threat to being an agent of safety, an agent
Right.
of help, of assistance. You're seeing that today. And if
Yeah.
you reflect on yourself, I'm including myself right now, when my wife has a low immune system, so I've been doing the shopping. I go to the store and I do all the shopping, 100%. And I do everything I can to interact with machines to minimize that potential exposure to
Yeah.
viruses. So that behavior and that acceptance or comfort is already happening. Um, and I could give you many examples of how we're seeing that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think as you're right, as we see this accumulative effect, especially around COVID-19, and what people are willing to essentially do is, and now I think with food service, if you have these kinds of implementations from a robotic input standpoint, especially if food service outlets kind of make customers aware of what's happening, that we have a robot coming in and disinfecting our surfaces every night, and here's a video of it. You can kind of watch our new robot Ava do her business, and I think those kinds of accepting principles of society could definitely move us into that direction. I think the big question will be, as we move down the road, really when robots are truly doing everyday activities for us, do you think that's within a decade away before we can actually see robots in our homes, in our businesses, doing activities that normally other humans might be doing?
Yeah, I would say I would make a small adjustment. Instead of saying doing everything, I think it's less than 10 years for sure. We believe
Okay.
it's a shorter horizon. But I would say it's more doing things that we prefer not doing ourselves. We prefer
Yeah.
to have a robot do it or have a robot assist us in doing. I mean, this is a perfect example. The UV disinfecting robot is a perfect example of,
Yeah.
it's not safe. I don't want to be, carrying a UV wand and going around and
Wands.
trying
Yeah.
to disinfect because it's not safe for me.
Yeah.
Um, and the teleporting robot, let me give you another example of the adoption and the comfort. One of the applications we kind of got accelerated during the COVID-19 is deploying robots in elder care facilities, in nursing homes, and family members. Now, in addition to healthcare service providers who are using the robot, but family members now, they start giving the robot a name, right? They're going to see their mom they're using whatever name they want to use. They start building that relationship with the robot. And again, treating it as it's something helping them, not a threat.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it looks like Hollywood has made its mark on our society now with all the movies that we've watched, from iRobot to Bicentennial Man, you name it, that kind of integrated robots into our society in a very unique and different way. It's interesting that a pandemic has kind of brought forth something like what you guys are doing there at Ava. So it's kind of cool. Good job on you guys for doing this. I think it's going to help.
We're our vision is that it's independent. We don't believe, this is driven by the pandemic or the values for the pandemic. No, it might have accelerated it.
Sure.
Our vision getting realized quicker, faster, including the telepresence robot. Just think of how many people now that work from home and expect to do that for the long run, not just during COVID-19. Goes well beyond in terms of it's a positive outcome, or the silver lining, if you want to say, right? Ability to enhance the quality of life, but yet still be able to do what I need to do, but I have the flexibility.
Yeah, very cool. I can't wait to see this in the restaurant industry, full force out there, because I think this would be a huge selling point, and it definitely would be a very good, safety mechanism for, just welfare of our communities and all of that. So kudos to what you guys are doing. Youssef, thank you so much for stopping in today on the Barron Report. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Good work on your end as well, and we'll talk soon, I hope.
All right. Good luck.
All right.
So beautiful. All right. So if you guys are listening in over there on iTunes or Spotify, that's great. Give us a feedback. We love to get your reviews there. That's one of the ways we learn a little bit about what's going on and what you want to hear and see about. I know you're out there because I just got another interesting request here on the Barron Report for a specific CEO to come in on the Barron Report. We're going to try to get to him and talk to that company about it. But that's how we kind of get that feedback. If you have someone that you think is a great interview that should be here on the Barron Report, shoot us an email to producer@foodabletv.com, or you can hit me up on Twitter, and that's just @PaulBarron. That's the easiest way to reach me. And of course, if you guys are in the restaurant industry, and I know you are, looking at just a complete new look at how you're operating your business, this may be something you're going to be looking at in the next couple of years. So keep your minds open and hopefully keep watching right here on the Barron Report. We'll catch you next time.